joining me, I have Brian, Rhonda, and Shelly, and they are from the Smoky Mountain Center. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to let you share with our viewers a little bit about what you each do and what your roles are. So, Brian, why don't we start with you?
Well, as the CEO, my biggest job is to make sure everybody comes back to work the following day. It's a great organization. We have really a big chore that we enjoy very much. Healthcare is a very confusing area for folks.
Absolutely.
So explaining what Smoky Mountain Center is and what we do is maybe something that folks would like to hear about. And then especially with Rhonda and Shelly, they play such an important role in our mission that if they can talk some more about that. Mental health reform in North Carolina even has a Wikipedia page. We're pretty well known for having a lot of challenges over the last decade or so. So people are, often confused about the whole landscape of healthcare, and especially when it comes to services for folks that have mental illness, intellectual or developmental disabilities, or
Right.
substance abuse needs. Our organization is no longer responsible for any direct care. I guess that's the first thing I should say. Often, we're confused with provider agencies, and in years
Right.
past, that's what we used to do. Now, our responsibility is to administer and manage care.
Okay.
And we do that for a 23-county region,
Wow.
so that any individuals that have problems related to, as I indicated, mental health, substance abuse, intellectual or developmental disabilities, we would be the ones responsible for managing that care. So on the one hand, we receive the money and we turn that into treatment services that people need. We have a huge investment in the community, and that's especially relevant to the work that Rhonda and Shelly do.
Now, Rhonda, tell us a little bit about your role in all of this.
So my responsibility is over the care coordination department, and what that means for people is we help support individuals with mental health, substance use, or intellectual and developmental disabilities. Those that are in the most acute levels of care, have the highest needs, navigate that complex, not only behavioral health system, but also make sure that they get connected with appropriate medical care, resources that might be available in the community. We're very fortunate. Smoky's had this model for well over 10 years, so we've been doing this for a long time, and that's one of the things that doesn't change no matter our size or if, and we've had 3 expansions in that. And so we have both licensed clinical staff as well as professional staff that live and work in each of our 23 counties, and so they are very well acquainted with all the things that are available, and then they support individuals and the providers to make sure that we get a good quality level of care, and also that folks don't get lost when they're trying to figure out what they need.
Right. Sounds like a lot of people are involved in this.
There are.
Now, Shelly, talk with us a little bit about your role.
One of the things that I love about my job at Smoky is I get to work a lot in communicating and supporting people like Rhonda and all of our departments, and talking about what we do and the kinds of services we provide in communications. I also work with our legislative delegation, our boards of commissioners, county managers, and trying to keep them informed about everything that's happening. As Rhonda mentioned, we are getting larger,
Right.
but our goal is to maintain a local community presence through programs like care coordination, and we have a community collaboration department that has boots on the ground, as Brian would say, to work with our agencies and different organizations in the community. Now my role, and one of the things that I'm working on right now, is a very exciting. Smoky Mountain Center has a Consumer and Family Advisory Council, which works with our board of directors and now has seats on our board of directors. We have a provider council made up of our contract providers from across the 23 counties, and we're getting ready to start a county commissioner advisory council so that every county that we serve will have a county commissioner that will serve on this body and work intimately with our board so that we continue to know what community needs are from not only their perspective, but perspective of the other groups that we have advisory councils for already.
Wow, a very big job as well, it sounds like.
It's a great job at Smoky.
Wonderful. Now, how long has the Smoky Mountain Center been around?
Well, that's a great question. I guess we'd have to answer that in phases because there's been such an evolution in North Carolina reflected in public policy around, initially, Smoky Mountain Center was an area program and was responsible for directly delivering most of the services that people received. And I don't know, Shelley is the senior member here of the staff, probably the mid-70s?
Yeah, it was the Community Mental Health Act. It was 1970.